definitely one that will never escape the memory of Seahawk fans. Or Patriots, for that matter. Packers got to be kicking themselves today a little bit. They could have been there. Good to have you with us on this Monday edition of the Ed Schultz Internet Broadcast. This podcast brought to you by Communication Workers of America, Alliance for American Manufacturing, BioGreen Clean, and the iSave team. Well, I guess that's why they play the game. I had no dog in the fight. I really didn't care who won. I wanted to see a great game, and despite all the controversy that the NFL had manufactured in front of itself this year, they did certainly deliver on a great Super Bowl. Number 49 goes to the Patriots. You got to be living underneath a rock if you don't know what happened. And everybody's talking about the last play. So before I go any further, let's go to the head coach of the Seattle Seahawks. This is Pete Carroll after the game.
We got one timeout somewhere in here because we only have one timeout because we were waiting for the replay on the curse catch. We thought maybe they would, then we lost our time, so we had to use the timeout there. So we only have one timeout left. We got 3 plays. We got to get all 3 plays run. So we sent 3 receivers on the field to go ahead and run the ball in there, and they sent goal line people on the field. So they kind of got a better matchup than we have. So I said, throw it. I was going to throw it here. We can throw a touchdown pass. We win the game. We have great matchups the other way. And if we throw a touchdown pass, nobody ever would have thought of it. But the fact that we make them, they make a great play. We didn't make a mistake even. They make a great play, and Butler intercepts the ball. But the point is that football-wise, we're coming back. We're gonna run the ball on 3rd and 4th down, or whatever we want to do on 3rd and 4th down to win, because we'll use our timeout. 3rd down, we'd run the football, and then if we didn't score, we'd use the timeout, and then we'd do whatever we needed to do on 4th down, depending on where the ball was. We had it all. It was really clear. So it's not like we abandoned the running game or any of that kind of stuff. It's the matchup happened. We knew that one of those plays there you have to throw it because you need to stop the clock so that you can get the other 2 plays run, and that's basically what happened. So, if we run it there and don't make it, we'd had to use the timeout. Okay, then what happens on 3rd and 4th down? So that's all. Those are all the thoughts we already have. So we were clear as can be about it. It's really hard on everybody to understand that, but that had nothing to do with Marshawn, had nothing to do with all the yards we rushed for. It was to make sure we had all 3 plays that we could execute at the end of the game, and not everybody gets that, so I get it.
Well, not everybody does get it, because common sense left the building. You get the best running back in the NFL. You got a big old guy back there who's been pounding inside all day long. And you got an offensive line that's probably thinking, all right, I'm a half a yard away from a championship. Yeah, I can move my guy. We'll get in here. But I think that the Seahawks were so disciplined in their ready list. Every team goes into an NFL game with, okay, these are our best plays on 1st down in the middle of the field. These are the plays we want to run inside the red zone. These are our best 3rd and long pass plays. This is what we want to do on 2nd and short. And inside the 5-yard line, there's probably a half a dozen or 12 plays that every team offensively will choose. This is what we want to do down on the goal line. And so sending receivers in to throw the football in this situation was probably, well, this is what we're going to call. This is what we've practiced. This is what's on our ready list. We still have another timeout. We can pound it in there if this doesn't work. Instead of saying, wait a minute, we've only got a yard to go. And the safest thing to do is to give it to the best guy in the league and pound it in there. To throw the football, and the fact is that throwing a pick play or a slant play on the goal line is probably the safest pass you can throw. Now, on the other side of the field, on the other side of the football, is the defensive back that, number one, recognized the formation, recognized something that told him they were going to throw the pick and throw the slant on the inside, and he just, well prepared, made a play. As Pete Carroll said, they just made a great play. I kind of thought, looking at the replay over and over again, that the wide receiver had to bear some responsibility here. Because the guy made the cut, and it looked to me like he didn't come full speed out of his cut to leave the defensive back. And had he had gone full speed out of his cut, maybe Butler would not have been able to close as well as he did and get the inside shoulder of the wide receiver. But it looked to me, there's no question that Butler made a hell of a play, no doubt about it. But it looked to me like the receiver did not go full bore out of his cut trying to leave the defender. And, of course, it gave him room to cut in front of him. I bet Russell Wilson is going to play this thing through his head to the end of time. And he's probably so disciplined that he does what the coaches tell him to do. They send the play in. But at the end of the day, now that it's an interception, it looks like Wilson was trying to be the hero and upstage Tom Brady in the comeback and bring the Seahawks back with a big pass play down the sideline and a great catch. And then Marshawn Lynch runs it short of the goal line, and then, boom, he throws a touchdown pass and the Seahawks win. So he probably didn't even think about calling off the coaches. And, you know, I understand what Pete Carroll's saying. It's very systematic the way they were going to do it. They didn't think twice about throwing the football and the risk in it all. But a yard to go and several downs to get it in, plus a timeout to figure it out. I don't know. It's one for the archives, no doubt about it. Pete Carroll is as good a coach as you're going to find. So is Belichick. And I think that the preparation of the New England Patriots on their goal line defense deserves a lot of credit. Somebody coached that defensive back to recognize that formation and school that player up. This is what they like to do on the goal line. And when you see them line up at that two-receiver set in tight like that, they're going to run that pick play, and that guy's going to run the slant. And so what did that athlete do? He made a determination, I'm going to gamble. Because the receiver could have done a slant and then take it to the back of the end zone. But Butler committed himself right away. And it's a safe pass to throw. It's a slant. So Wilson gets the snap, boom, throws a slant, wrong guy gets it. Life goes on. Everybody's questioning it, whether it's saying it's the worst call in the history of the Super Bowl. Hell, if the play had worked, it would have been the greatest call in the history of the Super Bowl. It would have been a great comeback. It would have been there a year. But I think that common sense left the building. I think you got an offensive line sitting there saying, we got a yard to go. We got Lynch behind us. All right, this is it. Everything we've worked for, we're going to pound them. We're going to come off the line of scrimmage. We're going to root the peg on my guy, and boom, I'm going to take this thing in, and we're going to win it all. It would have been the safe call. But I think that they were so prepared with their ready list. They were so prepared with the way they want to do things inside the 10-yard line or inside the 5. They're committed to their offense. This is what they want to do, and they decided to throw the football without thinking. Without thinking. You know, a lot of decisions have to be made in 25 seconds. It's easy for us to sit here and say they made the wrong one. Patriots made the right thing. They prepared their defense. They prepared that one defensive back to make a hell of a play. That's the way I see it. Communication Workers of America bring you this podcast. With Progressive Allies, CWA is building a mass movement to restore workers' bargaining rights and reclaim our democracy. Find out more at cwa-union.org. Now this. You know, it really doesn't matter what time of year it is. You got to clean stuff in the house, in the garage, just general cleaning. If you're going to use something, you might as well use the absolute best. I use BioGreen Clean, and I recommend it to everybody. You got a cleaning job to do? This is what you want to use. BioGreen Clean. It's from the earth. It's plant-derived. You can use it year-round on everything. The garage, the kitchen, bathroom, floor, rugs, walls, general cleaning. It does it. Pet stains, you name it. Listen to Candy.
I was cleaning my oven. You normally have to take the shelves out, and they were really disgusting, just like the bottom of the oven was. And I normally would have to scrub them with steel wool and all sorts of stuff to get the stuff off. But I didn't have time, so I just put them in the sink, filled it up with water, and I put in some BioGreen Clean, and came back later and saw all this stuff floating in the water and realized that it had cleaned it all by itself, and all I had to do was take a rag and wipe it down. And I was like, oh, my God, this was the easiest thing. My oven looks like it's brand new again.
That's how strong it is. And you know what? It's effective, and you wouldn't believe what it does to petroleum products like grease or oil or any kind of gas, and it leaves no odor. It's amazing. BioGreen Clean is from the earth. It's plant-derived. It's 100% American, 100% effective, and truly eco-friendly. 100% satisfaction guarantee to your money back. Order today. Go to my website at WeGotEd.com and order, or go to BioGreenClean.com. That's BioGreenClean.com. They'll have a demonstration right there on the website. I'm showing you just how effective and how good it is. Order today. BioGreen Clean. You can follow me on Twitter. We got Ed and Ed Show. Traditional Super Bowl Sunday, the president does an interview with the network that is carrying the game. And, of course, today is Budget Day in Washington. The president unveiling his $4 trillion spending plan for the last year in office of 2016, saying yesterday he's pretty confident he can get some things done on infrastructure.
I think Republicans believe that we should be building our infrastructure. The question is, how do we pay for it? That's a negotiation that we should have.
But you're offering tax hikes, for the wealthy. That's something that couldn't even get through the Congress when it was run by Democrats.
Savannah, my job is to present the right ideas. And if the Republicans think they've got a better idea, they should present them. But my job is not to trim my sails and not tell the American people what we should be doing, pretending somehow that we don't need better roads or we don't need more affordable college. One of the things I've learned over the last 6 years is that when I tell the American people very clearly what direction I think the country should go in, sometimes people change their minds, and even Republicans occasionally start agreeing with me, although sometimes a little bit later than I would like.
The president rather optimistic he can get some things done. Center for American Progress has put out a survey. The average income among middle-class families shrank by 4.3% between 2009 and 2013, while incomes among the wealthiest 20% of American households grew by 0.4%. The emphasis on infrastructure and jobs and helping the middle class. For more on all this, Congressman John Garamendi, California, joins us here on the Ed Schultz Internet broadcast. John, good to have you with us.
Good to be with you, Ed. Great subject.
Well, how does this budget float? I mean, it cuts right to the fabric of what the country needs, as I see it.
Well, I think it's right on target. I think we absolutely have to build the infrastructure. You only need to go out on the roads and find the potholes. Well, you don't have to find them. They'll find you. We need bridges that are repaired. Bridges are falling down or will fall down. All of these things we need to do, sanitation systems, water systems, all of that. It is a huge necessity. It's the foundation upon which today and tomorrow's economy will grow, and it is immediate jobs, good, well-paying jobs. It's been anticipated that for every dollar we spend on infrastructure, we get $3.15 back in economic growth. So this is a great investment, not only today, employing people with good middle-class jobs, it's also a great way to grow the economy.
Paul Ryan, who's now the chairman of the House Ways and Means Committee, says he's willing to work with the president, find some common ground, and he kept talking about tax reform. Is this the opening for the president and the Democrats, that if you did something on tax reform that satisfied the Republicans, you'd get the kind of investment that the president wants on infrastructure? I mean, he's asking for an ambitious 6-year, $478 billion public works program on highway, bridges, and transit upgrades. Where's the opening here as you see it, Congressman?
Well, that is the opening. Okay, they want tax reform. The president has put out some very specific proposals on tax reform, like the $2 trillion of profits that American corporations are hiding overseas. He proposes to tax that, a mandatory tax of 14%. That would be the money that would immediately fund the infrastructure. If Paul Ryan has a different idea about the corporations that have evaded American taxes, put it on the table. Let's make sure everybody pays their fair share. That's a big piece of tax reform. There's plenty more to do. The tax rate could be lowered if certain American corporations actually paid their share of the taxes. All of that's possible. Money, what are we going to spend it on? Education, research, infrastructure, and make doggone sure that we're using American-built products as we go through this.
Tax reform is going to be a heavy lift. You got 1 in 4 corporations that pay no tax in this country. There's a bunch of money parked offshore that's avoiding tax. In some respects, Republicans have it exactly the way they want it. They want to see the corporate tax reduced down to 25%. And I don't know what loopholes anybody's got in mind to close that would make up the money to the Treasury, but the collections of the Treasury have got to be neutral or enhanced if we're going to be able to do this, don't they?
Oh, absolutely. And you just gave the indication where we need to go. If 1 in 4 American corporations are not paying taxes, well, they certainly ought to be. And if they were, we could reduce the tax rate and still raise the revenue necessary for infrastructure. There's no free lunch here unless you want to borrow money from the Chinese, and eventually you're going to have to pay big time for that. So let's get with it. Let's raise the money we need from those corporations that are escaping taxes. Also, there are plenty of American individuals that are escaping taxes. Close the loopholes, raise the tax revenue that we need for infrastructure and for education and research, and then get about the business of a fair tax code. You can reduce the tax rate on American corporations that are currently paying and those that would be paying in the future.
You know, it just seems to me that the Republicans have never warmed up to the idea of make it in America or buy American. That's a pretty heavy lift, isn't it, for them?
Well, it shouldn't be. I mean, if you care about America, if you care about the American economy, if you care about the American worker, then you ought to be supporting Buy America. There's an example right now, at this moment, where Amtrak is requesting a waiver on 30 train sets. These are new high-speed train sets, super high-speed. This high-speed rail on the East Coast corridor, 30 of them. They are requesting a waiver from the Buy America, and they're saying, well, they can't be built in America. And I'm saying, baloney, they can't be built in America. You hold that waiver, and the corporations will set up the manufacturing plants here in America, and they will be built in America. It's already happened. Amtrak, in the stimulus bill, American Recovery Act, there was some $700 million for new electric locomotives for Amtrak, 100% American built. Siemens, the German company, looked at that and said, $700 million, 70, 80 locomotives, we can build those in America. They opened a factory in Sacramento, California, and they are building 100% American-made. It's all a matter of the law. If the law says you're going to buy America, then corporations will set up these manufacturing plants, hire the middle-class workers, put them on the line, and we not only get the infrastructure we need, the trains we need, we also get the jobs we need.
Congressman John Garamendi, California. Always a pleasure. Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
You have a good day, Ed.
You bet. Thank you. Communication Workers of America, Alliance for American Manufacturing, BioGreen Clean bring you this podcast. Now this from the iSave team. It's time to continue our conversation about mechanical insulation. Mechanical insulation is for the piping systems in our nation's commercial and industrial facilities. Facility owners are burning up billions of dollars through the lack of mechanical insulation on these piping systems. One uninsulated steam valve will cost you 1 barrel of oil in heat loss per year. The average hospital has hundreds of these steam valves. The insulation on the valve pays for itself in less than a year. Adding the necessary insulation to the piping for a steam line is paid back in just 12 to 14 months. America, what are you thinking? We're wasting billions. Take the walk through your plant and look at the piping systems. Call the iSave team. Insulation saves America valuable energy, and this team of energy conservation specialists is shovel-ready to save you money. Visit iSaveTeam.org and call their toll-free number to have a specialist give your plant an energy audit. That's iSaveTeam.org.
Subscribe to the Ed Schultz Podcast today. Simply log on to iTunes, search for Ed Schultz, and click the subscribe button to have the show delivered to your preferred listening device daily, free of charge. Rate and review the podcast to tell us how we're doing. More details at WeGotEd.com.
You can follow me on Twitter at We Got Ed and at Ed Show. The Ed Show tonight on MSNBC, 5 o'clock Eastern Time. We're going to focus in on a story that I think is getting very little attention. U.S. workers on strike for the second day at 9 refineries across America. Steelworkers Union, which represents and employs at more than 200 U.S. oil refineries, terminals, pipelines, and chemical plants, started a strike in 9 sites on Sunday. It is the biggest walkout since 1980. For more on this, United Steelworkers International President Leo Gerard. Mr. Gerard, good to have you with us.
Thank you, Ed. Good to be with you.
You bet. No one likes to walk out. No one likes to walk from the negotiating table. Break this down for us. What's happening right now?
Well, we were, to be very blunt, we had no alternative really but to walk out, and we did it selectively. So that we'd give the companies a message. And much to people's chagrin, obviously money's an issue that we bargain on, but this dispute is, and our reason for going out was not about the money. It was about working conditions. It was about safe standards. It was about a fatigue standard where the employer manipulates the fatigue standard that was negotiated after the Texas City explosion about 10 years ago. And in that circumstance, they've got people that work ungodly hours, and then they find ways to manipulate them out of their premium pay. We've got health care issues. We've got training issues so that when someone leaves the workplace, we want them to have training so that they can bring skilled maintenance people into the workplace that are, in fact, employees in the workplace. And what the company has been doing is they've been bringing in contract labor rather than replacing our members that get trained. So we want training programs, and it's about really the, in many ways, as I said earlier to someone else, our proposals would have made the company and will make the company more productive. It makes the workplace safer, which is good for the community. It's good for the country. So we were shocked by the level of arrogance. Ed, they came in at the late hours of the bargaining and said to us, if you keep trying to have a lower out-of-pocket maximum, we're going to increase your premium contribution. So right now the premium contribution is 80-20, and the out-of-pocket max for a family is $7,500. So if you were to take that and you have a family with a sick child that needs a lot of care, a lot of medication, that could be $22,000 over a 3-year period of a collective agreement that plus the out-of-pocket premium, the copay. Mm-hmm. So we just wanted to have a fair discussion about how to reduce that, and they basically said, if you try to do that, we'll increase this, and threatened us. And so it's a difficult circumstance, but we offered to stay at the table. Shell, who's the lead company, walked away, and we're still in Houston ready to go if they're ready to come back to the table.
Now, this isn't standard operating procedure. This is the first national strike since 1980 for the Steelworkers Union, and a full walkout of the Steelworkers would threaten to disrupt as much as 64% of U.S. fuel production. Shell and union representatives, you started all this negotiation, on January 21st? And
The negotiations actually started long before that, but we got into what we would call intense negotiations for the last 10 days.
Well, where's this going to go, Leo? How determined are the workers to hold the line on this? I mean, if you're talking about things that are going to help the company, safety, working conditions, health care, training issues, that's not attacking their bottom line in any way. That's making their product better. Where's this going to go?
Look, I think that, as I said, we were very selective in determining which facilities we would ask to leave, to walk out, because we wanted to show the lead company, Shell, that we were determined to get a fair collective agreement. And we pointed out that the fundamental issues are not necessarily money. We can negotiate the money, and then with just a yes or no, we can decide that. The issue is, how do we get a training program that allows our folks to train and get into the maintenance work how do we get a fair fatigue standard? How do we get fair working conditions? How do we have a healthcare system? Think about this, a healthcare program where if your premium is $1,000 a month, you got to pay $200 a month for your healthcare on an 80-20 formula. And then once you do that, you got an out-of-pocket max of $7,500. So you're paying $200 a month times 12 months. That's $1,200, or excuse me, whatever the amount is, and then you've got $7,500 out of pocket if you got a sick child. When we asked Shell to bring that down to a lower number, and we said how many families would have it occurred at the lower number, there were 85 families that would have had the benefit of a lower number in all of Shell's unionized workplace, and yet they said no. Think about that, 85 families out of an employment base of thousands. That wouldn't even cost 1/10 of 1%. It would cost next to nothing. It would be negligible. So their anger or their frustration or their position is they don't want to have to negotiate health care with the union. They want to be able to dictate what it will be. And so if you're a management person making $300,000 or $400,000 a year, and you got to pay 80/20 plus a $7,500 out of pocket for your family, that's a much smaller percentage of your income than if you're making $75,000, $80,000, or $90,000. Over 3 years, it could be $22,000 if you've got a sick child.
Mm-hmm. We're talking 30,000 hourly workers at plants that together have 2/3 of the United States refining capacity. If there's not an agreement, what happens?
Well, I think that there'll be an agreement. I never want to say that there's never going to be an agreement. When I was a young staff rep and I had my first strike, I went to my father and I was really stressed out. And what he said is, eventually this will get settled, and that's my premise. We've offered to stay at the table. Our people are there, ready, willing, and able to bargain. We've touched base with the Conciliation Service, the Federal Mediation Conciliation Service. We've said we're prepared to work with them if they want. The company had not given us a final position. We had not given them a final position. They just refused to talk to us after 8 or 9 o'clock at night on Saturday, so they left us with no choice. So we gave them notice of the facilities that would be on a rotating, revolving extension, and we gave them notice of the 9 facilities that would be withdrawing their labor. And we would offer again to do that in a way that was safe and that we have an orderly shutdown of the facilities or an orderly reduction of the facilities, or whatever the case would be. Mm-hmm. We weren't going to jeopardize the company or our members' safety.
United Steelworkers International President Leo Gerard with us here on the Ed Schultz Internet broadcast. We're talking about an industry that's had some pretty good profits in recent years, aren't we?
Absolutely. They've had record profits. And even now with the decline in oil prices in the refinery industry, they make their money on the margin. And the refining industry is still doing reasonably well. And so, when again, we're not looking to break the bank here. These are discussions where we understand that the things that are going to be important in the future are things that will make the company a better and safer place to work. And, we use the example of Anacortes in Washington State, where there was fatalities where 7 people got killed. And after those 7 people got killed, we realized that on the eve before that fatality, they were going to get a health and safety award. So that shows you how dangerous the industry is and why we need these standards.
The president's coming out with his budget today, and, of course, there's a big emphasis on the middle class. The latest survey out by the CAP Center says that the average income among middle-class families shrank by 4.3% between 2009 and 2013, while incomes amongst the wealthiest 20% of American households grew by 0.4%. Now, you look at 2009 to 2013, and families shrinking at 4.3%, the average incomes of middle-class families. All this obstruction in Washington, the lack of a jobs package, the attack on unions, and union membership being pressured, I mean, this all spells defeat for the middle class. And this is a pretty gutsy time for you guys to do what you're doing.
Well, look, as I said, we were not given any alternative, and it's about having safe workplaces with reasonable work standards. They've got, as I said, they've got people working 14 and 16 days in a row at 12-hour shifts. You can't expect people to operate at a high level of productivity under those kind of conditions. That gives them about a 14, I could stretch it a bit, it'd be a 12 and 16% rate of underemployment. So we're saying hire people so that there's a reasonable shift scheduling, reasonable standards, and don't mess with the fatigue standard to try and deny people their premium pay for working overtime. And we're looking to make a fairer, safer workplace. And they just don't like the fact that they have to deal with the union in that regard. They want to be able to do what they want, when they want, the way they want. And we're saying that we have a right as their representatives to work for a fairer, safer workplace. And that's what we're doing. And when it comes to the president, His point is exactly right. And it's amazing that while we have all these discussions about declining standard of living for workers, I can guarantee you this: if you mirror that declining standard of living for the middle class up against the continuous attack on the labor movement since Ronald Reagan, they track each other. Mm-hmm. As they've denied people the right to collective bargaining, as they've made collective bargaining and organizing much harder, you can track that decline with the decline in the living standard of the middle class. So someone has to take a stand. I think the president's doing the right thing, and he's asking the richest 1% to go back. They're not going back to some crazy formula. He's asking them to go back to the days where Ronald Reagan said it was fine. Mm-hmm. Go back to the same rate that Ronald Reagan got you to. Mm-hmm. And hey, Ronald Reagan is like the right wing's God. If it was good enough for their God, it should be good enough for people today.
United Steelworkers International President Leo Gerard, always on the front line fighting for workers and middle-class families in this country. Mr. Gerard, great to have you with us. Keep up the fight, my friend. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ed, and thanks for being the voice.
You bet. We'll cover this tonight on The Ed Show on MSNBC and explain exactly what's unfolding with these workers. Communication Workers of America, Alliance for American Manufacturing, BioGreen Clean, and the iSave team bring you this internet broadcast. Well, Romney's out. We talked about that on Friday. And who's propelling forward in the polls in Iowa? All eyes on the Hawkeye State. It's Scott Walker. Walker, yesterday on ABC's This Week, being questioned by Martha Raddatz about foreign policy and why he's running.
99% chance you'll run?
Oh, I don't know that I take the odds. I just would tell you one thing. After 3 elections for governor and 4 years in a state that hasn't gone Republican since 1984 for president, I wouldn't bet against me on anything.
Pretty confident guy. Mitt Romney announced why he's not running for president in 2016 on a conference call on Friday.
After putting considerable thought into making another run for president, I've decided it's best to give other leaders in the party the opportunity to become our next nominee. I'm convinced that we can win the nomination, but I fully realize it would have been a difficult test and a hard fight.
He could win the nomination, but all polls show that he would be destroyed by Hillary Clinton. Clinton continues to keep her powder dry. That, of course, I think is affecting any challengers because the window of opportunity to raise money to mount any kind of charge against the Clintons is starting to narrow. Time is of the essence. Back to Walker for a moment. This is exactly what the conservatives want. They want a guy that's never going to back down. They want a guy who's relentless in principle. That really is the attractant. You can go to the state of Wisconsin this day, and the big story there is he wants to cut $300 million out of the higher education University of Wisconsin system. He's a Koch brother dream. He's not Washington. He's been in the media since the fall, or should I say the winter of 2011 when he attacked workers. He's continued to move forward with a radical legislative agenda, and he's the corporate darling. And he's kept himself visible. It is true he's won 3 elections in 4 years, and he doesn't waver. He doesn't negotiate with Democrats. This is exactly what the right wing wants. They want an ideologue who can speak. He's no Sarah Palin. He can grab the microphone, he can walk around on stage, and he can tell you who he is. And so I think Walker is only going to grow. And he's up against social conservative Mike Huckabee, who I think is going to grab the hard right wing. Listen to Huckabee, cut 10 on the big list today, talking about how gay marriage is a biblical issue. Now, this is going to play for the Family Research Council and some hard social conservatives, but I'm not so sure that it's going to gather mainstream Republicans, if there's any left, that would back him as a president.
But for me, as it was for President Obama in 2008, this is not just a political issue. It is a biblical issue. And as a biblical issue, unless, I get a new version of the scriptures, it's really not my place to say, okay, I'm just going to evolve. It's like asking somebody who's Jewish to start serving bacon-wrapped shrimp in their deli. We don't want to do that. I mean, we're not going to do that. Or asking a Muslim to serve up something that is offensive to him, or to have dogs in his backyard. We're so sensitive to make sure we don't offend certain religions, but then we act like Christians can't have the convictions that they've had for over 2,000 years.
That is going to play well with the hard right wing and the Christian right in this country. This might be a problem, offending women on the East Coast.
It's one of those things where in a business meeting that you might have in the South or in the Midwest there in Iowa, you would not have people who would just throw the F-bomb and use gratuitous profanity in a professional setting.
Right.
In New York, not only do the men do it, but the women do it. And you just are looking around and saying, my gosh, this is worse than locker room talk. This would be considered totally inappropriate to say these things in front of a woman, and for a woman to say them in a professional setting, we would only assume that this is a very, as we would say in the South, that's just trashy.
Well, Mike Huckabee's bridge to the possible nomination is just too narrow as I see it. A little fresher face and someone who's had the radical legislative agenda is Walker. I think Walker's only going to gain in the polls. He has an innate ability to get people to support him on issues where it's not even popular. We'll see how it goes. Communication Workers of America, Alliance for American Manufacturing, BioGreen Clean, and the iSave team bring you this podcast. Podcast brought to you by CWA. With Progressive Allies, CWA is building a mass movement to restore workers' bargaining rights and reclaim our democracy. Learn more at cwa-union.org. The Steelworkers strike tonight at 9 facilities across America. That's on the Ed Show, 5 o'clock Eastern. We're back tomorrow.